First, about the respiratory system. Respiratory system is the system which every cell in the body receive oxygen and excrete carbon dioxide through the lungs. By the lungs, inhale and exhale the air through the respiratory passages starting from the nasal cavities, nasopharynx, larynx, trachea, bronchi, bronchioles, and finally to the alveoli. This breathing in and out. Breathing in is called as inspiration and breathing out is called as expiration. The breathing in and inspiration and expiration of air through the lungs is external respiration. The air is exchanged in oxygen and every cell of the body the air is exchanged in oxygen and out for the carbon dioxide in alveolus. We already know that. The air will be inhaled and exhaled by the lungs. Inhaled air is called as oxygen and exhaled air is carbon dioxide, which is a mixture of nitrogen also. And the exchange of gases at cellular level is described as internal respiration. What is the external respiration and internal respiration? External respiration means breathing in and breathing out is called as external air respiration, and internal respiration means the exchange of gases at the cellular level is called as internal respiration. Functions of respiration. What are the main functions of respiration? The functions of respiration is having interchange of gases and maintenance of pH, maintenance of circulation, excretion and metabolic function, finally temperature regulation and water regulation. These are the functions of respiration. The anatomy of respiratory system. Here comes to the anatomy of respiratory system. It includes two lungs, which is we already know that two lungs are there and the respiratory passage is there, and which include that nasal cavities, nasopharynx, larynx, trachea and bronchi. The lungs, trachea, bronchia and bronchioles are found in thoracic cage, whereas the respiratory passages include a part of trachea or extrathoracic. The thoracic cage is a bony cartilaginous cage. We can observe that the cage-like structure is called as thoracic cage, with the muscles situated in between the sternum and costal cartilage. There are 12 thoracic vertebrae that joined by the intravertebral discs, which is made up of cavities, which is mainly made up of cartilages. There are 12 pairs of ribs that's connected by the intracostal muscles. The 12 pairs of ribs are connected to the intracostal muscles. The diaphragm will be separated by the thorax from abdomen. The whole thoracic cavity is occupied by the lungs with pleural covering and heart with peritoneal covering. Heart is covered by peritoneal covering and lungs are covered by the pleural covering. These are the two main coverings. They are pleural and peritoneal. The peritoneal covering is covered the heart and pleural covering is covered the lungs. The cavity between lungs is called as mediastinum. We already see that the cavity is there. The means the part between two lungs is called as mediastinum. It contains heart and pericardium, esophagus, thoracic duct, big blood vessels and part of trachea and bronchi. Okay. The cavity between two lungs is known as mediastinum and it contains the heart. In between the two lungs, the mediastinum place. Mediastinum place is occupied by the heart and pericardium. Heart, mainly heart. With the heart, its parts. Okay. And nostrils. When came to the nostrils and nasal cavity, there are two nostrils are there, and then two nasal openings which serve like a gateway of respiratory system. But through these two nostrils, the air will be passed into the lungs, and expiration, inspiration will be occurred by the two nostrils. The nasal cavity has one central septum that divides the whole cavity into two parts. Each half of the nasal cavity has three turbinates, that is called as conchae, which form the cavities in nasal cavity. The superior conchae lodges the olfactory bulb and nerve ramification along with the inflammatory receptors. The interior structure of nose having three functions, that is warming, moisturizing and filtration of air. Warming means when we inspire, when we inhale the air into lungs, then in nostrils the warming, moisturizing, filtration will be occurred, then it will go to the reaches to the lungs. And the anterior portion of nasal cavity just inside the nostril is called as vestibule. And air enters into the nostrils, it passes first through the vestibule, then after the olfactory receptors lies in the membrane which lining by the nasal conchae, and the region is called as olfactory epithelium. And the olfactory epithelium mucous membrane contains capillaries, and which is ciliated by the epithelium with the capillaries. Mucus is secreted by the goblet cells. In our nostrils, the mucus is secreted. That is by the why it is means, that is secreted by the goblet cells, which contain moisture in the air and traps the dust particles. We already know that for trapping the dust particles, the mucus will be secreted by the goblet cells. Here next move to the nasopharynx. It is a junction between the oral and nasal cavity. Okay, and it is guarded by the epiglottis, which closes the passage of air while swallowing the food. While swallowing the food, the epiglottis is closes. This is about the nasopharynx. And larynx. It is the voice box which is interposted to prevent the entry of food material in trachea. It is a prominent thyroid cartilage which is presented above and below the thyroid cartilage. The cartilages are situated between the thyroid cartilages are situated over the thyroid gland. Other cartilages are epiglottis, arytenoid, corniculate and cuneiform. The epiglottis is a large leaf-shaped piece of elastic cartilage. The stem of epiglottis is attached to the thyroid cartilage, but the leaf portion is not attached to the thyroid cartilage because it is free to move. During swallowing, the larynx rises, which causes free edge of epiglottis to move down and form a lid over glottis. This glottis contains a pair of folds. The larynx is closed off and liquid and food enters into the esophagus. Then the lining of larynx inferior to the vocal folds. The cilia helps to trap the dust and which is not removed in upper passages. Where we move to the trachea and bronchi. Trachea is about 4 inches long and extends from the larynx to level of fifth thoracic vertebrae. Okay, and it is composed of 16 to 20 C-shaped incomplete rings. The front part of trachea is made up of cartilage and back part is made up of fibrous tissue. The esophagus is situated on the back of trachea. C-shaped cartilage is provide the semi-rigid support. You can see the picture of this. The organs of respiratory system contains trachea, bronchus, ribs, bronchioles, lung, rib cage, and left side lung and right side lungs. There are two lungs, and finally the diaphragm. In that diaphragm contain respiratory bronchial, alveolar duct and alveolus. This is about the respiratory system, organs and its function. Oh, and when we move to the lungs are a pair of lungs is there. There are two lungs with a bronchus which are attached to the each of them, and there are cone-shaped spongy organs. These lungs are cone-shaped spongy organs. Their apex are situated slightly above the clavicle bones and bases are near the diaphragm. The right side of lung is thicker than the left, and the right lung has 3 and left lung has 2 lobes. Each lobe is composed of lobules. A small doubt is there. The left side of lung is slightly downside and right side lung is up to the diaphragm because having liver. These lungs, right lung is thicker and left is thinner. There are alveolar ducts are there which are open, and pleura. The lung is covered by the all double serous membrane that is called as pleura, and this pleura is closely attached to the lungs and known as visceral layer. The free layer on thoracic wall is known as partial layer. This layer is called as pleura, in which is thick and closely attached to the lungs. Between two pleural layers, there is a fluid that is called as Between the two pleural layers, there is a fluid which lubricates the surface and prevents the friction between the lungs and chest wall during the respiration. The interpleural pressure is important for the bringing out respiratory movements. And when we move to the pulmonary circulation, the pulmonary trunk, which arises from the right ventricle of heart, supplies the carbon dioxide containing blood to the lungs for oxygenation. We will discuss about the oxygenation and deoxygenation in next class. Thank you.